Happy Sunday, everybody. Steve here again. Slowly, like I said in my note, I did test positive for COVID, so I'm quarantined here in the Mobile Ritter Command Post here in Abu Dhabi. So I'm finally I'm feeling a lot better, and I cooked something last night, so I'm gonna post a video. I actually got my crock pot out and cooked something up last night for dinner. Feeling good. I feel a whole lot better. Just a little bit of some stuffy nose, but that's it. No aches, no pains anymore, or anything else. So feel a whole lot better. Thank God. Appreciate all the prayers and everything else. So I want to talk today about what are we doing it all for? And I specifically I'm thinking somebody left a comment the other day, which on a different subject, but I agree with completely. I mean, I believe God created us to work, to do things. I think, and we're created in His image, and He works and has created the world, and so it's about doing things and creating and doing, and so I believe that. So we go about our lives and we work, and I specifically was thinking about Joseph, and he's one of my favorite persons in the Bible in Genesis. So Joseph, son of Jacob, firstborn son of with Rachel, and he adored him, and they gave him the special code, and his brothers had it out for him, ended up selling him to slavery. So the thing I love, Joseph he just puts his head down and gets to work, and God blesses him in everything he does. And so he starts off, he's a slave, and he's bought um, by Potiphar, who was head of the Pharaoh's guard and all, so very important man. And and Potiphar, after a while, realizes something different about this guy, and he puts him in charge of his household. There's nothing that in Potiphar's household except his wife that he doesn't have. He doesn't have access to. He doesn't control and work, and God blesses it because it's Joseph. And he has as good a life as you could have, I imagine, as a slave in Egypt at the time, and he's doing all these things. He's well thought of, and then Potiphar's wife takes a shine to him, and falsely accuses him of attacking her, and into prison Joseph goes. And I imagine that it doesn't say that he does, but I think about that, and I kind of take that and kind of overlap that in my life. Not that somebody falsely accused me or anything else, but I think about you work hard, you go to work, you do all these things, and what are you doing it for? And are you doing it for the things you get or the praise you get or whatever? Because I imagine Joseph probably that first night in prison, he's sitting there going, man, I busted my tail for that guy. Potiphar, I mean, I did all this work. I worked hard. I was conscious. I did not do this thing that I'm accused of. And I wonder if he didn't kind of not, a little upset that he didn't get the benefit of the doubt, and like, hey, man, um, what was it all for? He did all this work for the guy, and he was just tossed out on his ear like that, just for a false accusation, and into jail he goes, right? So, you bust your tail at work, and you put in all these long hours, and they pick somebody else for the promotion, or somebody that is not as good as you, and it's easy to get frustrated with that. I used to say that when I was a commander. We'd have commanders calls, whatever, and I was a squadron commander, C-17 squadron commander there, and I would have all my pilots, low masters there, and I said, look, I'm sure somebody out there is a, you know, patent, that you got it in you to be this tremendous, great leader. I said, I can't see in your heart. God can, but I can't. And so I have to go by what I see. And sometimes sometimes just things just don't go the way you put on all this work, and it just doesn't go your way, and it gets frustrating. And I think about this movie. It was fairly forgettable except for this one scene that really stood out in my mind. It's that Jack Nicholson movie called About Schmidt, and it was kind of touted as a comedy, but it's not really. It's not. And anyway, but there's this. He works at this insurance company. He works actuary tables, which makes my eyes cross just thinking about it. But he's all the statistics of what's the right age to charge this amount, when's the point. And he has all these tables and everything else. That's his life's work, and he's about to retire. And he's got a little bit of an overlap with the guy that's replacing him, a kind of a young buck, hard charger guy. And so Jack Nicholson, I just remember he has these boxes stacked up in his office. And he's like, I've been working on this project for the last 10 years of this new way of doing this actuary table, this particular thing. And it's, hey, I got it up to a point. I'm going to give it all to you and let you run with it, And the guy's like, yeah, great, I'll take a look at it. And so he retires, and then he comes back like a week later to get something. Goes in there, and the guy's, he's talking with his replacement. Goes, so did you have a chance to? Oh yeah, I'm still running through the numbers and all, and I'm getting through all that and everything. Okay, well it's really gonna shake things up. Yeah, good, thanks, appreciate it. And he's walking out of the building. He walks past the alley and he looks down and he sees by the dumpster all those boxes of his stacked up, right by the dumpster. The guy just didn't even look at them, just tossed them out. All that work, all that effort, and everything else that just for nothing, So on the surface, boy, this is encouraging, Steve. Yeah, but I guess I want to take for me, and all of this is just my thoughts and everything. I don't again I don't purport to be this great biblical scholar. I'm just sharing something that I've come to realize or whatever. What's it for, So I take a step back and I go, boy, if you are dependent on this world to honor you for your hard work, you'll be sorely mistaken. And sometimes people do. Sometimes people get acknowledged, and that's great. I've kind of got to the point where I'm like I'm a little careful of that, because the Bible talks. Jesus said it himself that in Matthew 6:19-20, do not store up for yourselves treasures on earth, where moth and vermin destroy, where thieves break in and steal. But store up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where moths and vermin do not destroy, where thieves do not break in and steal. And what are those treasures? Knowing that for me, it's what do I do these things for? Because I felt in my career, I got to the point in the Air Force, and even now, where I feel like God's called me to do something. He called me to do this, and I'm doing it for Him. And we're to do all things as unto the Lord. That's what Paul taught. Do all things as unto the Lord. And if you do that, if you keep that in mind, and you're working towards that, you're not going to get the praise that you might not get the praise that you think you do. But God sees it all. God does see your heart. God does see what you're doing it for. And even though you don't get this praise and this reward on this earth, God knows. And that gives me great comfort, because then you step back and you go, okay, well, what are we doing it for? Doing it for the Lord, doing it for our brothers and sisters, doing it for our family. and if there's one life in this world that you change, one life that you touch, you may, you know, I've thought about that a lot. I still from time to time get notes from people that were in my squadron, or that I my career, I touched, I influenced or did something while I was on active duty in their life, and they reach out and say that how much they appreciate that. And I always got to the point as a commander where I kept that in mind, that it might all be for this one person right here, that your a word of kindness, or a note given in good season, or a word of encouragement to this person, to just have them go take a breath and be able to keep going. And it might, that might be what God's called you to do, and that person goes on to do whatever, and you had a part in that, and being satisfied with that. That may be what God calls you to do. Maybe what He calls you to do on a regular basis, but that gives me great comfort thinking about that. And I'm much less concerned. It's nice to have people say, hey, good job, and give you rewards and things like that. But that's not what it's about, is it? So, one last little funny story. I remember when I was a maintenance officer, in Altus, Oklahoma, was my first assignment, and one of my first jobs I was an officer in charge, and I was in charge of fabrication branch. So fabrication branch, we had metals tech, which is like the welders and the millers, and they would mill parts out. It's pretty amazing how they could mill parts out of solid blocks of aluminum and everything else. Sheet metal guys too. Anyway, this shop could make anything, metal or whatever. So it was kind of the go-to shop for going away stuff, right? So they had this nice engraving machine, and anyway, one of their big things to give away, where they would take a C-5 aircraft engine, and they would mill it out of a piece of aluminum, and it was really nice, and they would mount it on a plaque, and of course, the more important you were, like the bigger the engine was or whatever, and so we had our colonel, our group commander was retiring, and or was he retired, or was he going somewhere else? I think he was going somewhere else. Anyway, well, he did not get along. My squadron commander at the time did not get along with him at all, and he didn't let. I mean, he hated him. I remember walking along. Well, I was a first lieutenant, walking along to a meeting with him, and he goes, I probably shouldn't tell you this because you're a lieutenant, and I think he was a major at the time. He goes, but I hate that man. He couldn't stand him. Anyway, for all his reasons. But so we were tasked to make this guy a going away plaque, and nobody really cared for the guy. He was a little cold and distant and aloof, and so they bring in this plaque, and they we were sitting at a meeting, and they're going, hey, Lieutenant, here's the going away thing for the colonel. And so I'm like, oh, okay, and I get it, and I look at it, and it said, to Colonel so and so, it said, God luck and good speed from the men and women of the squadron. And I was like, no. I was like, oh man, no, it's good luck and Godspeed. And they kind of, yeah, no. He goes, lift the plaque up. So there was like a false front, little metal plaque on it, and you kind of lifted it up, and there was the correct thing. And I'm like, oh, that's funny. He goes, yeah, hey. And so I took it to my commander at the time, again, who hated the colonel, and showed it to him, and he goes, oh, okay, all right, thanks. And so we go to the going away dinner and he gets up there to present it. He never took the front off. And so he gets up there and he goes, well, Colonel, here's a nice plaque. And I said, oh, the Colonel's like, oh, yeah, that's nice. He goes, and it reads, God, luck, and good speed from the, oh, look at that. Well, I guess that's the kind of work you expect from us all the time. That's what you think. So here's your plaque. And he never took the thing off. He never like said, oh, look, no, and he left it on there. And I'm sitting at the table. Of course, I knew what was going on, and I thought that's what I look over at Arlene. I'm going, oh, he never took the plaque off. Oh, and I saw him after. I'm like, hey, Major, you he goes, I can't stand that man. He goes, if that's what he thinks of us, we might as well send him out thinking that. So, oh, that was terrible. But anyway, I just, that's reminded me of that story. But anyway, I hope you have a great Sunday. I hope this was an encouragement to you. And think about what you're doing. Think about who you're doing it for and what you're doing it for. God's called you, go about the Lord's work and encourage one another and lift each other up. And we'll see you next time. This is Colonel signing off. See you next time.